Today, 17th September 2024, good morning to everybody. We are going to discuss editorials of The Hindu. First article here, Indian military export to Israel, it is aiding to genocide. In this regard, article has been written. This article we will discuss in detail. Supreme Court bench headed by Chief Justice of India, they dismissed a petition filed by former civil servants, academics, even activists also. The petition named as Ashok Kumar Sharma and others versus Union of India. This petition, they sought a suspension of existing licenses and even withholding further licenses by government of India's public sector and private companies for exporting military equipment to Israel during this ongoing war. Supreme Court told clearly it was not the case of merit, and it went to somewhat like derailment of the justice. That's what author says. Supreme Court didn't give clear justice, they derailed the judgment. So this dismissal, the petition Ashok Kumar Sharma and others versus Union of India, this will raise important questions about judicial review over executive decision, matters related to foreign policy, especially when international humanitarian law, there is a grave violation, then how these things can be taken. You all are aware, we have discussed several times also, presently war is happening in Israel between Hamas and Israel. Now recently Hezbollah also joined this army, and then these militancy group, they are attacking on Israel, and Israel also carrying out offensive act on these militancies. This process is going on. Even India is exporting defense equipment. So author aims to stop this defense export because this will lead to violation of the international humanitarian law. So author explains about International Court of Justice, their opinion. According to International Court of Justice, the challenge is that provisional measures against Israel because of the violation of human rights in Gaza Strip, they violate under Geneva's Genocide Convention. There are conventions are there. These genocide conventions, there are measures. There should be immediate stop of all killing and destruction that are being perpetrated by Israel on Hamas. In this judgment, United Nations experts, they warned against transfer of weapon to Israel. This constitutes serious violation of human rights, and then this may complicate the international crimes also. Now author is telling about the situation in India, but United States is supporting Israel with a lot of weapons and equipment. In July, International Court of Justice, they gave detailed opinion declaring sustained abuse by Israel. This was continuing. Israel's presence in this occupied Palestine territory, this is unlawful. Even International Court of Justice, they observed all states that are under obligation, they do not render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by Israel's illegal presence. There is no such situation happening in Gaza Strip. Gaza Strip basically location in Palestine. So there are so much human violations are happening. Earlier to this, military support by Germany to Israel, basically Nicaragua versus Germany. International Court of Justice, they told International Court of Justice, they are considering particularly important to remind all states their international obligations relating to transfer of arms to parties of armed conflict in order to avoid risk such that those risks violating the conventions, in this case Geneva Conventions, Genocide Convention, many such conventions are there. Court basically told many countries to stop supplying arms to those countries that are under war. Following this, there have been challenges for export of arms to Israel in several global jurisdictions. Even Hague Court of Appeal, they ordered Dutch government to stop export of F-35 fighter jet parts to Israel because the components exported to Israel will be used to committing serious violation of the international law. Many countries that are parties to conventions such as Geneva and Genocide, they have stopped supply of military equipment to Israel. In obligations to these binding obligations. If you see several countries, Canada, Spain, even United Kingdom, they have suspended their licenses companies supplying arms to Israel. As a part of this convention, and India is party to this convention, India also has similar obligation that need to be acted upon it. India obligated under genocide conventions to take all measures within its power to prevent this genocide. If you see Article 3 of convention, this makes states complicity in genocide punishable offense. The obligation, this genocide obligation not only supply weapons to state that are guilty of war crimes. This is obligation directly based on Article 1 of the Geneva Conventions. So these kind of offences we should not take, and this is a punishable offence as per International Court of Justice. The principles that are outlined in these conventions, they are norms in the international law. India, therefore, India cannot supply any military equipment or weapon to Israel when there is a serious risk that these weapons may cause war crimes. Even these things may guide in violation of the human rights in large manner. And author tells about how Supreme Court failed in giving judgment. While giving judgment, Supreme Court of India told clearly it is under obligations to interpret domestic law in the light of obligations under the conventions, treaties that India signed and ratified. Supreme Court basically interpreted those laws in domestical context. That means within India's context. However, the highest court dismissed the present case that has been held that international obligations are not binding since a country, Israel, that is violation of the international law. This was not before the court. Basically, this country is not before the court, hence the violation in the law. Even the state of Israel, this is not being party to court in such challenges because Israel is not party to these international court. It is irrelevant exactly. No relief was being sought against Israel, but against government of India and private companies exporting arms to Israel, thereby violating international law obligations. Court even stated petitioner submissions were conduct of the independent sovereign nations, basically Israel, and those petitioner submissions were like grant relief sought. This would be findings with regard to petitioner allegations against Israel. These allegations by petitioner, they were with respect to conduct of India in sanctioning military exports. This will prevent genocide. The determination of conduct of State of Israel, this was as per International Court of Justice. This has detailed order of the full court. There are provisional measures against Israel. There are numerous reports by even United Nations Special Rapporteurs, International Aid Organization. They documented how Gaza was a special place of death and despair. The court rationally, this is given in its judgment. This judgment, they clearly stated that these commitments made by country, particularly with related to constitutional and statutory mandates. If we come to India, the opinion basically lies with Indian jurisdiction. India is a sovereign country. Whatever the jurisdiction that lies, the court, whatever judgment it may give, it lies within India. It may not cross other country, and those thing they have brought out, there will be a specific expression how the humanitarian law have been violated, how these things have been taken place. Those things need to be clearly discussed. Second area, court told suspension of licenses with regard to contracts with international entities, including even the State of Israel. This will involve breach of contract in other fallouts also. Now we have proper contract, we cannot suspend them all of a sudden. Author says certainly this is what petitioner prayed for. Petitioner basically asking for stopping of all licenses to export of military arms to Israel because this genocide and with related to pending contracts also. Court is fearing this would lead to breach of contract that is misplaced. Any party to contract to export of arms can always claim force majeure. What is force majeure? Some unexceptional circumstances come out During that time, this force majeure will come, and then they can quote according to this thing. Even the same situation can rise in India if government of India itself to suspend the licenses. It can do any situations, as many countries have done suspension of these things. We have discussed UK suspended, and then Spain suspended. Because of awareness of these risks that have been carried out, and then the genocidal activities have been committed by Israel, the government now is bound to employ all reasonably available methods to prevent this genocide. This will include suspension of export licenses for military aid to Israel. No contracting party they can come and argue, let alone court can endorse. The license cannot be suspended by government because it affects their financial stability, that companies that are concerned. Third thing, the self-imposed restraints on court entering into area of foreign policy. This is like another bogey to dismiss the challenge. So court cannot enter into foreign policy, and foreign policy they apply within the domestic context. These things that have been self-imposed by Supreme Court, they need to be again revisited. It is certainly true that India has binding commitment under international law. If you see in the context of application of conventions that have been signed and ratified, Supreme Court every time held international law obligations not contrary to municipal law. They must be read into law of our land. They must be understood from our Indian context. So the court will step into its exercise of judicial discretion and caution in executive government because there is a violation of these laws. The court should come and then they should uphold the humanity. In the midst of all this humanitarian crisis that is happening in Palestine, international outcry against Israel continuing this genocide, Supreme Court failure to ensure this Indian government stopping of military aid to Israel, even this complies with the commitment under international law. This will have serious repercussions in this war and devastation that will continue if it is not prevented. This is the article about, as per my opinion, suppose say we are stopping military aid, then Israel may get military aid from United States of America. Anyhow, they are getting. But what about the militancy group who are carrying out acts against Israel? Those military groups, they are getting ammunitions, they are getting funds through back channels. Financial Action Task Force (FATF), you might have heard several times. There is a grey channel of funding happening in the background. How we can control those things? Those things also need to be taken care in order to stop everything. And both countries, Israel and Palestine, they should be brought on platform, and the peace measures should be followed, and then two-state solutions as proposed in the past, they should come to certain conclusion. They cannot change the past, and then they should look forward to future. This is the article about Indian military export to Israel. Next article we will discuss about climate debate in India and how future generations should guide climate debate. The Summit of Future, this will be convened in United Nations, New York in September 22-23. This Summit of the Future, this will be aiming to identify multilateral pathways to address major problems that can threaten common future of the humanity. The list is long, like there are several challenges there: conflict to climate change, pandemics, pollution, even outrageous income inequalities. There are, like abnormal form of discrimination. They all are, huge focus of discussion under climate change. They are affecting one way or another. They are tied everything under string. So this vision guiding multi-stakeholder consultation in a world where people can come together, they will give greater assurance for protection of impact of such threats of the well-being. So they will come and they'll discuss and they will point out a platform so that climate change impact can be minimized. What is like main theme in this Summit of Future? Future generation rights. This is the main theme. The rights of future generation to live in safe and secure world. This is a dominant theme driving demands for climate justice. This theme undoubtedly dominate the discourse at the summit. But what about real commitments? There is indeed moral imperative for present generations to ensure livable planet for those who will follow the future. But whether there are any legal obligations are there, whether in the debate the issue emerged, like European Journal of International Law in 2023, essay by Stephen Humphrey from Law School, London School of Economics. There is a debate on the title against future generations. Even scholars from Netherlands, India, and US, they published later in defense of this future generation. The lead author, like there are several authors are there. They talked about climate change related proceedings in International Court of Justice. Even those who have pointed out, they were drafting group of Maastricht principle of human rights of future generations. There are certain principles are there. You can understand Maastricht principle in attack against whatever debate that was carrying out. Several scholars from Netherlands, India, they pointed out these things in International Court of Justice. There were appeal to protest rights of the future generation. This is very ambiguous rhetoric. And then this argument resonates with government. Government most of the time believe that there is an obligation to pursue environmentally destructive pathways to development. Even if you see in developing countries, they are still developing because living standards are very low. Present generations, if we want to improve our economy, provide a job growth, employment opportunity, we certain extent need to destruct environment. Suppose say we are carrying out economic activities, these things will release harmful gases or economically destructive activity that will anyhow impact environment. But there is a huge obligation on developed countries. Developed countries, industrial revolution, they happened in 1800s. Those countries, they have fully utilized those things. Now they are today developed. They completely gone from industrial sector to service sector. But developing country recently, just 50 plus years since their independence, they are still struggling for maintaining human rights. They are struggling for removing the poverty. They are struggling for growth in the economy. They are struggling for establishing the industry. But during these circumstances, developed countries should come. They should follow this Paris climate change guidelines. Even authors Humphrey, he argues there is a future call that unfairly converts those who are responsible to presently owed, then the responsibility of the future. Even one of the author, they comes in counter of this thing. Future generation discourse, this is like emancipatory power. This will offer potential reshaping of international law based on vision of the justice, solidarity across time and space. They tell that according to traditional beliefs, then the wisdom of the indigenous groups across the world, because always we have duty towards welfare of the future generation. This is regarded as sacred norm. So these obligations are invoked towards 4 to 7 generations ahead. What about judgments on environmental matters? These authors, those who are debating on this, they draw judgments from low and middle income countries on environmental matters. Among these judgments, they will put one of landmark judgment in Colombia. This judgment, they advanced principle of intergeneration of solidarity by ordering government to formulate and implement intergenerational pact for life of the Colombian Amazon. You are aware, Amazon forest, how it has been degraded. So this intergenerational solidarity has been happening between the countries, and then they are citing these quotes also in order to give future generations about the present climate justice. Supreme Court of Pakistan, they upheld bar on construction of cement plants in environmentally fragile zone. They declared there is a pen and jurisdiction fiat. We need to decolonize our future generation from the wrath of this climate change. We need to uphold climate justice in all time. That was told by justices in Supreme Court of Pakistan. But how much it is following, we do not know. Even in Indian case, National Green Tribunal, we have upheld principle of intergenerational equity in the right to equipment, in the right to environment. What is this intergenerational equity? If generation across generation, the next generation comes, we need to maintain that parity. Now, just because we are born, if we completely utilize the resources on the earth, the intergenerational equity we cannot maintain. The next generation cannot enjoy these things. We cannot show them blue skies. We can only show them black sky. Even High Court of Kenya, they declared present generation is legally obliged to maintain and enhance the health, diversity, productivity of the natural resources so that that will benefit future generation. Even High Court of South Africa, they declared intergenerational justice. This will require state government to consider long-term impact of pollution on future generations. Even Maastricht principle, they clearly pronounce linking of sustainable development and climate justice discourses to rights for the future generation. We need to follow sustainable development so that our future generation rights cannot be compromised. Even preamble of the document, neither Universal Declaration of Human Rights nor any other rights instruments containing the temporal limitations of the present time. There is preamble of the document. This also tells about guaranteeing and protecting the future generation rights. Human rights, they will extend all members of the human family. Now, like present generation, future generation. Human generation, it even tells they exist within unbroken continuum that continually renewed and redefined. Suppose today we will live, after some time we will die, and the next generation will come up. This preamble further tells human rights of future generation, they must be understood, they must be interpreted and integrated with evolving legal context, recognizing humanity relationship with natural world, and then we need to measure with best available science. The huge focus on these rights, they must be interpreted and applied in the humanity's dependence on and responsibility to earth, natural system, now and throughout our species future. These documents, they identify 36 principles. They will guide national and global levels how future generations must be represented meaningfully and effectively in decision making that may impact on their enjoyment of the human rights. How we need to put concentration to overshoot day. See, if 8 of the 9 planetary boundaries that need Earth healthy survival, they have already breached, they are already crossed environmental limits. Planetary overshoot day. What is this planetary overshoot day? When Earth capacity to renew the depleted natural resources each year, this is exhausted. So this has moved from December 13, 1970 to August 1, 2024. So 8 of the 9 planetary boundaries, they have already depleted their capacity. If it is going to continue in the presenting calendar, future generation will be left with bankrupt planet. They cannot live in this planet. We need to go away from this rush and perpetration, not just to save our present lives. We have to make planet in such a way that future and generations can enjoy the benefits. This is the article about rights of the future generation, how this debate must guide climate change. Next article we will discuss about women-led development in the Rajya Sabha. Rajya Sabha, upper house of the parliament. Every 6 years, members, renewal happens in the Rajya Sabha. And Rajya Sabha, there will be a lot of discussion happening on the bills. So what should be the women's role in the Rajya Sabha? What do you mean by first thing, women-led development? This women-led development, this is recognized as a 6 focal points during India's presidency during G20. It is always women-led development, one of the cornerstone in India's government priorities and policies. Under women-led development approach, women are not just beneficiaries of the development, they are part of the agenda of the development. They are key participants in planning and decision making. What are the measures in the house? When women are leading governance, development initiative across the world, India's legislature, that is, like one of the greatest organ in the democracy, they cannot afford to left behind. In this background, Vice President of India and Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, Jagdeep Dhankar, he has introduced several progressive measures in the proceeding of the House as well as in the Secretariat. The Vice President of India, Mr. Dhankar, he hold his view, role of women in Parliament is very, very huge. He even stated women are backbone of the Parliament, even country's economic development. When nation witnessed historic passage of this Nari Shakti Vandan Abhiyanam Women Reservation Bill in 2023, it is very historic move. This reconstituted panel of vice chairperson to include only women. He even told and highlighted this will send a powerful message to world at large, and it would symbolize there is a commanding position during epochal moment of change. There is a time period in history. This will give a huge powerful message to Indian continent, even across the world also, because we need to harness power of the women so that they can contribute huge to policy making. What is the role of basically member of the parliament? Just to sit in the parliament and then chill out. That is not their role. They need to make policy making. They are the legislators. They are the lawmakers. They should make law in such a way that all populations from across the country, they will be benefited. They will be representing basically diversity. When women comes into parliament, they will provide their opinion. Their opinion basically differs, and then this will basically enhance and augment those policy measures, even legislative measures also. This will benefit country at a large. Dhankar, he began practice of nominating 4 women members. This will constitute 50% of the panel of the vice chairpersons. Because this Fangan Konyak, she became first woman in Rajya Sabha. She is a member from Nagaland to preside over the house. Even eminent athlete P.T. Usha, she created history by becoming first nominated member of parliament in history. She became vice chairperson of the Rajya Sabha. Under India's presidency in G20 New Delhi, during leaders' declaration, we have highlighted investing and empowering women and girls. This will lead a multiple effect in implementing 2030 agenda for sustainable development. India is already working tirelessly towards goal 5.5 of the sustainable development goal. What is this goal? This will call for women full and effective participation, equal opportunities for leadership at all levels in decision making in political, economic and public life. Rajya Sabha Secretariat, this is expected to set highest standards in this direction. What are all the initiatives taken in the Secretariat? There is an aim to strike gender balance in the Rajya Sabha Secretariat. Vice President Dhankar, he has started many new initiatives. For example, those people who are related to house duty, they are conventionally considered as male dominion. Now they involved late sittings. The chairman felt need to break such stereotypes. All gazetted women officers of the secretariat now trying to perform house related duties also. These kind of small changes, they will make big differences basically. If you see today, there is a table of house largely being women by female officers. Even duty roster prepared by women. Women officers are deputed on the chambers of duty also. Moreover, there is an application-based system called Vahan. This was introduced addressing problems of the commutations during late sitting hours. With this app, Vahan, women officers can now they can benefit themselves of commutation facility during odd hours. Suppose a parliament is continuing till 11 or 12 p.m. Then they can use this app and then they can utilize these services. They can safely reach their destination. There are several measures, process of selection. Some women officials in the secretariat, they have been appointed as the chamber attendants. This has created a favorable atmosphere even inside of the house of the women MPs. During these various interactions with officer of the secretariat, Dhankar, he unequivocally stated women-led development, this is going to future roadmap for Rajya Sabha Secretariat. The process already began. Women officers are appointed in key positions, even leading roles in Rajya Sabha Secretariat. If you see today, responsibilities such as human resources, legislative section, capacity building divisions, they have been entrusted with women officers on the secretariat. Besides high skill based work such as officiating parliamentary standing committee of the Rajya Sabha, this is being done by women officer at various levels. Even some senior positions in the secretariat service, they are being occupied by women officers. Top performing women officers, they have been recognized and rewarded with all across all the services. Now, women officer of the secretariat, she has been appointed as a master trainer for IGOT Karmayogi Bharat, basically training employment related schemes and all. There is another noteworthy aspect, introducing women centric measures in the secretariat. This is spirit of the women development and women empowerment. These kind of gender sensitization workshops, even these kind of talks they have organized, this will create a healthy culture of the gender parity. Chairman, he also told many things about synergizing work with creativity and recreation. Celebration of the Women's Day in Secretariat, this will be a case in point wherein all women will be brought up, and then whatever the activities they have been taken out, those things will be highlighted. At one time they will feel good, and second time they feel empowered. Basically someone is recognizing their efforts. These kind of Women Day programs, they are conceptualized, organized, executed by women officers and employees. They themselves do all these things. These events will give them many opportunities to showcase their talents. India is a vibrant democracy. It is healthy to give regular interactions between legislature and academia. The buck should not have just stop at the secretariat. Therefore, like Mr. Dhankar, he offered invite 5 interns from Miranda House in Delhi for 15-day course on parliamentary procedures. Rajya Sabha under Mr. Dhankar chairmanship, this is leading by example in translating ideal of women-led development into reality. This will pave way for other legislature in India to follow the suit. Women role in parliament slowly reducing, but if you empower the women, they will create a lot of challenges can be solved in Indian context. If you see certain countries such as Nigeria, there is women contributions to parliament is very high. Almost 40 to 50% of the members in the parliament, they are women. They are contributing immensely great to the house. So these things can be greatly utilized. This will lead to women development, and then more women can come out from the grassroots, and then there will be leadership basically. So we discussed 3 articles today. Thank you very much for discussion.